Now, broadcasting white paper is a big deal, isn't it? They don't come along very often. What's the aim of this white paper?
I'm very proud, today to be Secretary of State in DCMS when we've launched a broadcasting white paper, because it's really addressing the position we're in right now today in terms of the threats to broadcasting. It's the landscape is changing rapidly. We have streamers like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and others who are all coming into the broadcasting landscape at the moment, and there are many changes happening. And the point of the broadcasting white paper is to bring what is a kind of analog age into the digital age. There's a number of things in the broadcasting white paper to help achieve that, but it's also to set a level playing field also between those streamers and our public service broadcasters, and to make sure that is, and protecting audiences, make sure that is a level playing field. But there's many measures in there that will boost British broadcasting, and it was time for that to happen.
Well, let's go through one or two of them. Let's start with Channel 4. When you announced that you had decided to privatise Channel 4, there was an outcry, not just from within Channel 4, but within the industry. And a lot of people were saying, well, what does a politician know that the industry doesn't know? Why do you think it's so important to privatise Channel 4?
We've taken a very long, hard look at this. As you know, it's been on the cards for some considerable time. And it has come to the point where it has to happen for a number of reasons. One is that Channel 4 simply cannot raise its own investment or its own funding streams because it's publicly owned, it's owned by the government. Interestingly, you say there was an outcry. Public polling shows that 53% of people did not know it was owned by the government. And we need Channel 4, particularly with prominence is also in this white paper, which you may ask me about in a minute, which increases the value of Channel 4. But we need Channel 4 to be able to raise its own funding and its own investment. Why do we need to do that? Because its only revenue comes from advertising. And as we know, the advertising revenue is decreasing. And it's so interesting because this paper's come out today in the same week that Netflix have said they're going to start looking at introducing advertising onto their platforms. That means the advertising budget is going to be spent even thinner. There's going to be even less for Channel 4. So we need to enable Channel 4 to innovate.
But why don't they recognise that? I mean, they are against what you're doing.
Actually,
why don't they recognise the argument that you're putting forward?
Interestingly, they do. What Channel 4 has said is that they want to raise investment. They want to do that. They've actually said a couple of weeks ago that's what they want to do. Well, they can do that, but they can't do that while it's owned by the state. It's not the place today for the state to own a broadcaster, a state broadcaster that's raising private investment. And we've looked long and hard at this, and we've decided that that's not the role of the government. The role of the government is to own a state broadcaster that's raising private revenue. We will set Channel 4 free so that it can do that, so that it can raise that investment.
But it's sink or swim then, isn't it?
But there's another side to this, and that is that if Channel 4 came to a position where it was in difficulty, and given that its advertising revenue, which is the only revenue it has to fund itself and to exist on, is decreasing, given that's the only revenue it has at the moment, looking into the future, there is going to be a point at which Channel 4 will come knocking on the government's door, because when it does get into trouble, if it ever got into trouble, the only place Channel 4 under its existing licence can borrow money from is the government. And the government shouldn't be in that position. And when Margaret Thatcher set Channel 4 up, she did it to act as a disruptor, to stimulate the independent production market, and it's done it very well. But only 7% of the revenue, independent sector revenue, comes from Channel 4. We have a booming independent production sector in the UK, and there are other elements to this sale. We want to use the proceeds as a creative dividend to train those skilled people we need to work in this sector. So there are many elements to the sale. It's just not, well, let the government give Channel 4 its funding.
But there are fears that the independent production companies will lose out here, and I hear what you say about the percentage of programmes made. But do you think that there is
it's not the percentage of programmes made. The percentage of funding revenue received by the independent sector comes from Channel 4, just 7%.
But there is a fear also that it might lead to fewer British-made programmes on Channel 4?
It will lead to more, I hope.
How?
So in the broadcasting white paper, you will see that what we're enabling with the white paper is that British content. We want to see more British content. We've protected British content in the white paper. So we want to see more content made in Britain. And I'll give you an example, actually, using Channel 4, the Derry Girls. And the reason why we've put in the broadcasting white paper that we want to see British content protected and to see more of it made is that no American streamer, no other company would make something like Peaky Blinders or the Derry Girls, or I'd like to see Bread come back, or one of those type of kind of programs that are
BBC, to be fair,
rooted in the regions. And so in the broadcasting white paper, we've also said that those public sector broadcasters, of which Channel 4 is one, have to spend a proportion of their revenue out in the regions producing regional content, because they've done that really well since they were privatised, and a small number of years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, is Channel 5. If you look at the amount of investment Channel 5 puts into the regions and how well Channel 5 has done since it's been privatised, I think that's a model. I call Channel 5 the levelling up broadcaster. That is a model for how broadcasting can work.
But just to be clear, you will put clauses in the privatisation bill that guarantee a certain level of British-made programmes and work for independent production companies.
And also, on top of that, money that's a requirement that funding is spent out in the regions, not just in London.
Okay. But the BBC, you've been very critical of aspects of the BBC since you've been in the job, or even before you got the job.
Hang a second, Ian.
Just to
be clear, of course I have, but I think you should caveat that with something I've said to you before, actually, is that I love the BBC. It is a fantastic British brand. The British Broadcasting Corporation is a global beacon for broadcasting across the world. It is a unique British product, and I love the brand. And what I don't like in the association that I'm critical about the BBC is that what what it's like. Some of these commentators say, "Oh, you're trying to trash the BBC." I'm not. Again, we're trying to protect the BBC.
But you are making clear that their funding model has got to change, that the licence fee is going to go by 2027. Yeah. I haven't seen the whole white paper, but do you put alternatives in the white paper, or is it just a sort of consultation that you're going to be launching?
So the charter renewal is due in 2027. The process that's taking place is the midterm review is due now. And that's going to be about governance, about how the BBC is held to account. It's just utterly, unbelievably wrong. I find it so difficult to understand that Ofcom has not upheld a single complaint against the BBC. So the midterm review is going to be about governance and how the BBC is held to account.
Well, that's an Ofcom problem, isn't it, rather than BBC?
Well, it's about how we set the rules for governance, which Ofcom apply to the BBC. And then we're going to look at shortly, a little bit later in the year, is how we launch a review into the licence fee. So we're going to have something in place long before 2027. We're going to decide the future of the BBC licence fee, probably over the next 2 years, ready to put in place for 2027. Why is that important? Well, there are lots of reasons.
I love it when politicians ask themselves the questions.
Well, no, I'm asking you. So I was asking you, Ian. But I thought I'd answer for you. So we want that in place before for a number of reasons, and one is, which is very close to my heart, is that 74% of all convictions for non-payment of the licence fee are women. They are women convicted for charged
Why
for
is
that? Because women assume responsibility for so many things in life, and many assume responsibility for household bills. It's their name on the licence fee, it's their name on the rent books, it's their name on the mortgage. But 74% are women. And so what I'm going to be looking at in the review is fairness. a fair model for funding the BBC
But in
moving
in
forward.
terms of that, you must have a preference for what you would like the conclusion
Actually,
of
I
this review to
don't. I
be.
absolutely do not. What I want to see is the BBC funded. I like to see the BBC be slightly more innovative, and also in how it raises its funding. But I'd and that's going to be part of the question, I think. But there are many models, you know. I think it's in Germany. They have a kind of council tax model. There are lots of people have been coming forward with ideas, you know, subscription but look at the fundamental reason why this is important. I think it's 20% that the BBC audience or the linear audience has reduced by in recent years. There is a lot of competition out there now among streamers and our public sector broadcasters, and so it's about finding a model which is fair, and people can see as fair. You know, the license fee model was, I think, introduced in 1946. Time's moved on.
One thing which is vexing the radio sector is that a third of people in their houses have smart speakers now. And 64% of listening on those smart speakers is radio, often commercial radio. And you have guaranteed television companies the right to appear on different platforms, but you haven't given radio the same protections as television have. Why not? Because people really value radio, don't they?
They do, and particularly everybody values radio. Everybody listens to your show values radio, but particularly my point to this actually is that older people, some are very dependent on radio, and all I can say to this is that I am looking very, very closely at this. You know, parliamentary legislative timetables are very tight and very difficult, and bill drafting is very difficult, as I think you know. But it doesn't mean that what's in a broadcasting white paper today will be in the bill that passes through Parliament.
Because a lot of these big tech companies, I mean, in theory, they could either block access to radio companies, or they could say, okay, you can still have access, but we're going to charge you £1 million. And that would be so unfair, wouldn't it?
I agree with you, and I fully appreciate that. And it's disappointing to me personally that we didn't manage to get that into the white paper in time for it being printed. But as I said, there's a long way to go between a white paper and a bill. And although the bill will be passed, hopefully, very soon, then Queen's speech is in May, so in third session, then there's a lot of room to amend that bill. And I'm hoping very much that I'll be able to get radio in there.
You better.
I know.
Now we've got to talk about what's happened over the past 48 hours, and the fact that apparently a male Conservative MP was watching porn on his phone in the House of Commons chamber. I don't know if you were among the group of female MPs that went to see the Chief Whip about all sorts of different things on this. But when you first heard about this, what was your reaction?
Well, I was shocked. I was shocked that anybody in a workplace would watch porn on a mobile phone, frankly. And I would imagine that the female MPs who were sat next to or near to would feel violated by seeing that and shocked themselves. But you know, what's really important is that something we never had. I mean, I've been in Parliament a long time and we never used to have. But there is a process in place for both the victims, that's the people who saw this porn being watched in the workplace, in a workplace like the mother of all parliaments as well. There's a process for the victims who saw that, but there's also a process to deal with and to hold account the MP who was doing this, and that's it's important for me that process, which was never there for many of the years I was in Westminster, is there now, so the victims can be helped, and there will be a due and fair process that the MP who was, I want to say if, it's a difficult one, it's not, I don't really want to talk about it anymore, because that process has to be allowed to take place. I don't think we should really comment on it until it has.
Suella Braverman, the Attorney General, she has said today that some men in politics behave like animals. What's been your experience? You've been an MP for 17 years. Have you experienced this sort of behaviour?
So, do you know, I don't know whether it's generational. I must be butt ugly or something else, because I haven't. But so I think with different generations, there have been different patterns of behaviour. my main problem that I've experienced has been mansplaining and having to talk over to be heard, and being talked down and being overlooked. But it seems to me progressively with generations we're seeing worse kinds of behaviour coming in. But it's not party political. It's across Westminster in all parties. I think somebody's been suspended from the House today, I believe, from Labour. So it's not any particular...
That was for bullying, not a sexual thing. We
right, okay.
should make
I didn't
clear.
know what it was. But it's not a particular party issue. It's definitely across.
But when you look at the Angela Rayner Mail on Sunday incident, and the editor of the Mail on Sunday has refused to go and see the Speaker of the House of Commons to talk about it, do you think he should have gone?
Oh, look, I believe in a free press. You know, I'm the Secretary of State for media, and a free press is the cornerstone of our democracy. The relationship between the Speaker and the Mail on Sunday is something for the Speaker and the Mail on Sunday to deal with. But what I'm concerned about is that we do have a free press because it is the cornerstone of our democracy, and we have processes, which we do in this country, both legal and ipso processes,
but do you
deal with.
Do you have sympathy with Angela Rayner here? Because it wasn't just the sort of the sexual element here, it was the fact a lot of people interpreted the story as basically saying, well, she's a bit thick and therefore she can't debate with the Noel Titonian Boris Johnson. Well, to my mind, she has proved that she absolutely can. But you've had that in your career, haven't you?
Oh, I had that when
You're
I
blonde,
got this
you come
job.
from Liverpool, and therefore people draw stereotypical conclusions.
And I think I've probably had more of it than most over the years. And, you know, I just look at the reaction when I got this job. Look at the reaction when I said I was going to sell Channel 4. I mean, some of it was absolutely barbaric. It was just appalling, some of the things that have been said about me and to me, particularly online. I mean, I don't even look at comments online now because, you know, I would not be a happy person if I did. It's a bit like inviting a million people into your garden to shout abuse at you. You just don't do it.
But you do provoke some of it, though, don't you, with some of your tweets? Yeah. I mean,
Name one.
Well, I was looking at one that you sent out just before you came here. It was all about Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson. If Boris Johnson got a fixed penalty notice, should Keir Starmer? I mean, you didn't have to say all of that, did you? You do sort of bring it on yourself a bit.
No, Iain. I think that's slightly unfair. I think it's, you know, the Prime Minister was accepted his fine, apologised, humbly and profusely apologised, did not think that he was walking into a situation, has been one of the best leaders, is the best leader
The police
that
found
I've ever
that
worked under.
The police found differently, don't you have to respect that?
What I think I'd like to see is consistency across the interpretation of the regulations. So we've just described what has happened to our Prime Minister, who, by the way, has delivered Brexit, led us out of a pandemic. If it was still up to Keir Starmer, we'd probably still be in lockdown. Who has made sure we're one of the fastest growing economies in the G7, is leading us out of that.
Well, we're not anymore, are we? That's the problem.
We are. But,
well, not next year, we're not going to be.
Well, let's talk about that next year, but at the moment we are. So with Keir Starmer, it was a pre-arranged social occasion, and Durham Police very quickly found that wasn't in breach of the regulations. So what I'm asking for is consistency in interpretation of those regulations. And I'd just like to see, and I've done it in the newspapers today, I'd just like to see Keir Starmer held to the same standard as the Prime Minister. And what I can't get my head around is why Keir Starmer thinks it's okay to constantly criticise the Prime Minister and attack the Prime Minister and his party on a daily basis.
It's his job.
Because the Prime Minister was walking. Well, if you just let me finish. To do that whilst not holding himself to the same standards, whilst thinking it's okay for him to go to a pre-arranged social occasion with food and alcohol, and that doesn't count. It's the same regulations.
The dreaded final question. You've been an MP for 17 years. What do you know now that you wish you'd known back in 2005 when you were first elected?
Oh, God. I think I did my first interview with you,
You did, yeah.
I did, yeah. Oh,
I still have it somewhere.
Blimey.
Because there are a lot of people who come into politics and stay for quite a long time, and in the end rather regret doing it. And because they have a vision of what it would be like. Has it been anything like you thought it would
so
be?
you know, Ian, that I arrived in Westminster kind of after I'd had my career. So I think I was 49 when I arrived, and I'm 65 now. Is that right? Maybe I was younger. But I'd kind of, I'd been a nurse, worked in the NHS, started my business, sold my business. My children were growing up. I'd kind of done what I'd set out to achieve in my life. Politics was like the icing on the cake for me. And it's always been that way. It's always been a privilege and the icing on my life's career. So I didn't have, I did not come to, well, we discussed this years ago, 15, 20 years ago. I did not come to Westminster wanting to be a minister or wanting to be a Secretary of State. I was slightly perplexed by all my colleagues who were there absolutely to get to that place. It was kind of an anathema to me. It was not something I came for my constituency. I came because it was time for me to put something back after having had two successful careers. And so it's not. It's just. I think I'm just like a bit of an oddball, really. I never came into politics with the burning ambition that most MPs do come into.
And is that a strength for you now, where you have no ambition to be Prime Minister, and that frees you up quite a lot, being a Secretary of State, because you're not elbowing all the others out the way.
And it also frees me up to deliver, and I'm not risk averse. I'm very happy and very willing to take on some very difficult decisions and policies, such as the Online Safety Bill, which we've already done, tick. That has been kicking around my department for 6 years. Reform of the licence fee, tick. No one's really wanted to deal with that.
You haven't quite done that yet. But.
Well, no, but Iain, give me a chance. I can't do it overnight, but I've certainly...
Well, the fan-led review, which I think from a footballing point of view is a massive thing.
Fan-led review, tick, that was last week. A broadcasting white paper, sale of Channel 4. So I am aware that because when people say I'm at the end of my career, being the age that I am, it's a very different approach to the job. It's, I'm there to deliver for the Prime Minister. I'm there to get things done. I don't care if people don't like me. I don't worry if that means I may not get another Secretary of State job because I've had to take some of the difficult decisions. I'm just here to do the job.
And you are about to turn 65. I'm about to turn 60. For me, that's quite a moment. Is that a moment for you?
Was 60 a moment for me?
Well, no, was 65 going to be a moment for you?
I think it will be, I think it will be. I don't think 60 was, because I still felt young. But I think, I'm actually beginning to feel like I'm slowing down now. I do. So, I remember like my mother-in-law in the mornings.
Hopefully physically rather than mentally.
Well, yeah, I remember my mother-in-law in the morning saying, I can't get going in the morning without 2 cups of tea. I'm there. I'm like, give me my second cup of tea before I start. So I'm there.
Nadine, thank you very much.